Generally speaking, most skateboarders are pretty good people. They're friendly, creative, and overall, they're nice to hang around. Now, with that in mind, skateboarders aren't without their flaws, and sometimes they can be annoying to deal with.
I can't even cap. I can't even cap.
What do you mean cap?
Cap, you don't know what cap is?
No, what's cap?
In this video, we're going to go over the worst types of skaters. If you feel like anything was left off, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Do me a favor and leave a like on the video. Check out the links in the description. And with that said, let's get right into it. Actually, before we do, I want to thank Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of premium classes that cover basically any skill you can think of. Seriously, if there's a skill out there that you want to learn, there's a high probability that Skillshare has a really good class on it. They have classes on creative things like photo and video, as well as business-related things like marketing and finance. If you have a skill that you want to learn, Skillshare is the perfect place to start. One class I took recently that I think might help out a lot of you is iMovie for iPhones by Brian Garcia. Since most skaters film on their phones, knowing the ins and outs of iMovie is a great skill to have, and the class covers pretty much everything you need to know. Whether you just want to learn some cool new skills, or start a new side hustle, or make a career pivot, Skillshare is a great way to invest in yourself. It's completely ad-free, they add new premium classes every week, and they even have classes with subtitles in other languages. If you're interested in learning new skills or exploring new passions, the first 1,000 people to use the link in the description or use my code SKATEBOX will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. To start the list off, we have the complainer. This is the type of skater who's always complaining, regardless of the situation. They complain about the skate park, they complain about skate spots, they complain about skate videos. Basically, whatever the circumstance may be, they're most likely complaining.
I hate my life.
Now, I realize this might seem hypocritical because I'm essentially complaining about other people complaining, but I feel like this is justified. There's nothing wrong with getting bummed out occasionally or not liking whatever spot you're at, but there comes a point where it just gets to be a little too much. For number 2, we have the overhyper. This is the type of skater who always overhypes everything. So, for example, they'll find a new spot and completely hype it up to everyone. Then, everyone loads up into their car and drives there just to find out that it's actually super crusty and no one wants to skate it. This is the same type of person that completely hypes up some clip they got when, in reality, it wasn't all that great. There's nothing wrong with being positive and optimistic, but sometimes there's a limit, and when you hype things up too much, it can kind of lead to disappointment. Rather than overhype something and make it seem amazing, it's better to set expectations that are at least somewhat realistic.
It's the best thing anyone's ever tasted.
The best thing anyone's ever tasted? Come on, don't you think you're setting up our expectations a little high?
For number 3, we have the sketchy lurker skater. The sketchy lurker skater is arguably one of the worst skaters out there because they set a bad rap for the rest of us. The lurker is the kind of person who probably does skate, or at least used to skate, and they still hang around the skate park. This type of skater usually has some sort of trouble or drama going on, and they tend to cause problems for the rest of the community. They do things like sell items that they shouldn't be selling, or start fights with other people, or just bring other unnecessary problems to the skate park, which kind of ruins things for everyone else. The worst part is, sometimes these people actually don't skate at all, but for whatever reason, they still lurk at the skate park, and they bring all of their problems with them. This is probably the type of skater that I hate the most, but if you think there's one that's worse, definitely let me know in the comments. Next, we have the bad filmer. As the name suggests, the bad filmer is a filmer who is bad. There's tons of amazing filmers out there who are great at filming, editing, and just keeping the whole crew in check. However, the bad filmer is usually mediocre at all of those things, and it can be kind of annoying to deal with. These are the filmers who always mess up the clip, they never have the battery charged, they take forever to send people their clips, and they hoard everyone's footage even though they never put out a video. Now, I will say, skateboard filmers really don't get the recognition they deserve, so I can understand how some filmers get tired of it. With that said, there's some filmers out there who are never good to begin with, and they waste everyone's time either by not sending people their clips or by messing up the footage.
I f***ed that up. Yeah, 100%.
If you do happen to be friends with a filmer who's on top of their stuff, make sure you throw them some extra gas money or buy them lunch, because there's definitely a lot of bad ones out there that you could be stuck with instead. So moving on, we have the cool guy. The cool guy is the type of skater that thinks they're better than everyone else. This might be because they're actually good at skating or because they have a hookup with a company, but regardless of the reason, they're usually a pretty arrogant person. They don't always openly brag or show off, but they definitely find subtle ways to try to stroke their ego. For instance, they'll make very calculated posts on social media to flex something, but they do it in a way where it doesn't really seem like they are. A lot of times these people think that just because they can do a back tail or skate in designer clothes, that somehow they have an elevated level of importance, but most skaters can see through it. Don't get me wrong, sometimes people post things just to post them, but there's a certain finesse that people will do where they're constantly trying to flex while pretending like they aren't. Next, we have the poser. The poser is the kind of person who either barely skates or doesn't skate at all, but likes to pretend that they do. Just to be clear here, being a poser isn't the same as being a beginner. Beginners are just new skaters who aren't that good yet, but they actually do want to learn and they put in the time and effort to get better. A poser is someone who has little interest in actually progressing at skateboarding or being a part of their local skate scene, and instead just likes to dress like a skater. The reason why this is annoying is because they're basically stealing the culture, and instead of actually participating in the community, they're kind of just taking from it.
You probably know Thrasher is the maker of fine t-shirts that only hardcore skateboarders wear, but did you know they also make a magazine? Who would have thought?
Next up, we have the lazy skater. The lazy skater manifests their laziness in a variety of ways. Some of their traits include always having a pile of trash in their car because they never clean it out, or skating around with a beat up board because they're too lazy to set up a new one.
Oh, sorry about the trash.
It's okay, I'm used to it.
To be fair, every skater is kind of lazy to a certain extent, myself included, but there are some skaters who really take it to the next level. For the most part, there's nothing too bad about lazy skaters, but the one time it can be disappointing is when they're actually good at skating. When someone is good at skating, naturally, people want to see them reach their max potential. Unfortunately with skaters, a lot of times they're just too lazy, so you never see that happen. You see this time and time again when a skater is really good and naturally talented, but instead of going out and filming or pushing themselves to get better, they spend their time partying instead. As skateboarders, we can look past someone's dusty board or dirty car, but seeing talent go to waste is always a sad sight. Another one of the worst types of skaters is the show-off. Show-offs come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, but most commonly they're a younger skater who is typically good at skating. When someone happens to get good at something, especially at a young age, a lot of times they don't realize that it's frowned upon to be a show-off. This type of skater is similar to the cool guy, but they're much more open about it. They tend to be competitive and they love attention, and they definitely don't keep things low-key.
Hey Tony, it looks like it's gonna be you or me, man. No, it's not. It's me.
The show-off is the kind of person that will vibe you out at a skate park, or try to one-up whatever trick it is you're doing, or just land a trick in your face simply to prove that they can. Regardless of the offense, it's always a shame to see a skateboarder who's a show-off. The reality is, there's always going to be someone who's better than you, so trying to flex on the people you skate with is never a good look. The next type of skater is the grumpy old guy. There's a wide assortment of grumpy old skaters out there, but there's a few stereotypes that they tend to fit inside. The grumpy old skater constantly talks about how skateboarding used to be better in the 90s or early 2000s. They're always complaining about their back or their knees or some other injury, and they tend to spend more time standing around than actually skating. In all honesty, the grumpy old skater isn't that bad, and if you skate long enough, I think most people end up fitting the same description. With that said, sometimes it does get old hearing them complain about what skaters wear, or the new music they listen to, or whatever topic they happen to be ranting about. Don't get me wrong, older skaters deserve a lot of respect for sticking it out for so long, but you gotta admit, it gets a little old hearing them complain.
I'm a grumpy old man. I don't like everything the way it is now compared to the way it used to be.
The next skater on the list is the Grom skater. The Grom skater is a little kid who's often like the annoying little brother of the group. Sometimes Groms are just beginners, and sometimes they're actually really good, but there's a few things that they all have in common. They're always young, they always have way too much energy, and they're always at least slightly annoying. I will say, most of us were Groms at some point, so you can't get too frustrated with them, but they can still be a hassle. Groms usually have terrible skate park etiquette, they tend to be loud and obnoxious, and they just embody pretty much the worst traits that skaters have. One thing to remember though is that Groms are just a natural part of the skateboarding cycle. I'd even say that in some ways, they're kind of a necessary evil. As annoying as Groms can be, we were all there at some point, so you have to keep that in mind.
There you go, bud.
Oh, fuck, he's gonna get robbed on this.
So another one of the worst types of skaters is the angry skater. The angry skater is the type of skater who's always losing their temper. They're constantly throwing their board or breaking their board on purpose, and having a meltdown is a common occurrence. When it comes to the angry skater, they're not always aggressive towards other people, but they do have public freakouts that can kind of kill the vibe. Most skaters have gotten angry while skating at some point or another, but when someone makes snapping their board a personality trait, it can start to become a problem. The majority of skaters are just trying to have a good time, and that can be kind of hard to do when there's a guy screaming and throwing his board. For the most part, skaters tend to be decent human beings. The thing is, there's always going to be certain types of people who aren't the best to hang around, but that's not limited to just skateboarding. If you feel like anything was left out, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Do me a favor and leave a like on the video. Check out the links in the description. And with that said, thanks for watching.